Welcome to the Mullet Gang.
A neurospicy podcast for neurodivergent folks.
We bring the spicy to neurospicy.
We want you to know that you are not alone and you are not too much.
Let's fucking go.
Yeah. This is part 2 of our last episode where we kind of dived into ADHD and love. We reminisced. We took a trip down memory lane. We got to relive our younger selves and kind of talk about how ADHD affected us in our youth, our wild teens, and how that carried on in our relationships and even into our relationships today, right? So we have our partners joining us. We have Damien. Say hi, Damien.
Hi.
And we have Chris.
Hello.
So let's start with you guys. Tell us about your meet cute story. How did you guys meet?
Well, we actually met at TGI Fridays, like for the first time ever. So,
But it was a blind date.
but we talked a little bit on the phone before. Like we had like a little conversation, and then we met up at TGI Fridays. Amy walked up with her friends, so I was trying to guess who was who because I didn't know.
He was hoping it was the blonde. I think the interesting thing about like when we first started dating is like it was so natural. Like we never had a conversation about, hey, we should start dating, or hey, do you want to be exclusive? There were like no games. Like we just met, we instantly felt a connection, and the rest was history. Like I feel like it just like all of a sudden, like it's like, yep, this is it. This is my person. And there was just like none of that like wondering or like the games or waiting to call each other, and getting in your head. And I think that's what really has made it work, is just that clear communication, just always knowing how he feels about me and vice versa.
That's cute. So as you guys like met and when you guys started getting like really serious, when do you feel like you started to notice that you guys were heading into like a more committed situation in your relationship?
Maybe probably when we moved in together, right?
Yeah, I mean, I went away for like a couple months to Colorado to work, and
Okay.
then I came back and we decided to move in together at that point. So I think that was when things really took off.
How long did you guys date before you got married?
And was it even a year?
No.
Oh, but before we got married. I thought you meant before we lived it together. Yeah, I mean, we met, we were so young. I was 19, he was 21, we were still in college. So we really wanted to finish our education, at least our undergraduate.
It was 4 years because we got married in 2007.
Yeah.
We met in 2003.
Cute. And then you guys had kids,
Mhm.
but not right away, right?
Yeah, I mean, we definitely enjoyed, our 20s and didn't really even start thinking about a family, I think, till I turned 30, and then, got more serious about it.
Oh. And you had your first one at what age?
Gosh, I think I was 32 when I
Okay.
had Nora, and then I was 35 when I had Emma. So yeah, it's like a lot of our 30s was kind of in that phase of like, trying to have babies and pregnancies and all of that. So it was nice to have that decade or so before, I feel like, to really like get to know each other, to bond, to have those life experiences and kind of figure out what we wanted, and to also get like stable in our careers.
Yeah, that's a huge one, I think, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because if not, well, I mean, you guys were together like before that. So I wonder if some of your ADHD challenges were harder like when you were younger, or did they get harder a little later on?
Well, I think a lot of it came out probably when we started living together, because I had never lived really with anyone else outside of a roommate, a little bit briefly in college, and my parents. So when you start to coexist with someone in their living environment and you're trying to navigate all of that, I think that's when some of it came out, as far as cleanliness or just the way that we would organize the home or manage household tasks. But we still had a very small condo, so it was a lot different than like where we are now with all the other things.
Yeah, I think it gets harder the bigger space you have,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
And what do you think some of those challenges were? Like, I mean, everyone wants to know what's it like dating a person with ADHD, but
Yeah, I think in a lot of ways it was just kind of like, I have this clock in my head, like these things got to be done like ABC right now, this time and that time. Whereas Amy's like more delayed in her like approach to things. And I think a lot of ways that's where I had a lot of difference, and we still do a lot of times where it's like, hey, like we got to do this task right now. And then, I think we have just different timelines in our head about when this thing should be done or when it can be done. And usually it's me, it's like kind of checking things off a list. And then, I got to get things done right away. I can't rest until all these things are done. Where it's hard when you move in with somebody because then you're like, this chore needs to be done now, or this task needs to be done now. And then, if we're not on the same timeline, or we got to figure that out, like kind of what our processes are. I think in a lot of ways that's been our biggest struggle over the years. I mean, it's really been kind of the domestic part of living together. It's like you have different habits, I have different habits, and so you just have to kind of realize what's important and prioritize those things and say, okay, you know what, these things are things we can get over, and we can kind of find a system and work our way through it. So, we've done that obviously, but that's, I think, been the biggest challenge is kind of like how we sort of approach the day-to-day kind of management of the house and all that stuff. I think that's where the differences lie.
Yeah, like a different idea of like what's important or what's urgent, right? Like kind of different expectations in that area. Like he'll say, "Hey, can you help me empty the dishwasher?" I'll be like, "Yeah, sure," in a minute. Like, and I'm like just doing something else or relaxing. And his thing is like he can't move forward to the next task until that's done. So he's like, "Fine, I'll just do it." Right. And then he's like huffing and puffing. And sometimes there's that like resentment of I'll just do it versus maybe letting me like wait 5 minutes to help. So just I think being able to communicate about that and kind of communicate those expectations.
Hmm. That I definitely can relate to for sure. Um, but like when you guys started having challenges, do you feel like you sought out help before or after your diagnosis? Because I know you told me that you guys ended up going and doing some like therapy sessions and things. So,
Yeah, I mean, I think it was before, and we had
okay.
done some premarital counseling and counseling here and there. And even before I had my diagnosis, I think just getting support with managing the house, parenting, just adjusting to having two children, both working, and all the demands of life while still prioritizing each other. So even just wanting that support to still be accountable to like work on the relationship and prioritize each other with all the other demands. And then when I got diagnosed, a lot of things started to make sense why some of those things were challenging for us.
Mm. Do you feel like parenting brought out like more of those challenges?
Oh yeah, I mean, absolutely. That's where I feel like a lot of my overwhelm and overstimulation came in, and you just have more of that demand on your like energy, your time, your capacity. And with ADHD, we know we're already limited with that. We get burnt out really easily, we get frustrated, we're very impatient, we get easily overstimulated. We like
Big
the,
emotions,
yeah, we're dysregulated. So then when you have
reactivity.
kids, all of that's
Oh,
amplified.
yeah.
And if you don't have a strong partnership, it can be hard and really debilitating. Even if you do, it can cause a lot
Oh,
of
yeah.
challenges.
Well, I always think that like no partnership's like perfect. So it's work and you got to constantly put in the effort to make it as good as you can.
Hmm.
And that's the ones that you see that are really strong are the ones that are always doing that work.
Yeah, it's an ongoing process and effort.
Um, and when you did find out you were ADHD, did things start to like make more sense for you? Like, were you like, oh, wow, that like actually makes a lot of sense? Or,
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the more she talked to me about it, and just kind of give me the science behind it, just the sort of the research, and just it was just very eye-opening. Just it just really kind of it shifts your paradigm, right? Like it kind of shifts the way you look at your relationship, or just the way that the day-to-day stuff. Oh, that makes sense. Like to understand like what she goes through on a day-to-day basis, and why something may like impact her more in a certain way than it does for me, and just like, the time she needs to, maybe separate from things or process things. And so give her that space versus saying, hey, can you jump in? Like, but not knowing previously that she was overloaded, or, just like now just knowing that, okay, this is why you need to step away and, go lay down for a little bit. It's not because you don't want to help. It's just because you're, really not in the right mindset or the right capacity to help. So I
mm,
think that's been helpful in a lot of ways.
Yeah, that's a big one. Like recognizing that it's not that someone's lazy or they don't care, they're not prioritizing the relationship, but what's actually happening for them in their brain.
yeah, because what can happen in your brain can make you feel very physical, like,
Mhm.
right? Physically tired, physically ill,
Yeah.
like you're going to scream your head off and you don't know why. I
Yeah.
mean, I definitely feel that when I get overwhelmed or overstimulated, I cannot even like move forward sometimes.
Hmm.
Um, And then I guess once you guys found out about the diagnosis, you were able to like kind of move forward, right? And things kind of started to make more sense. And you were telling me like you guys started having like way better communication and
Yeah, I think it just really opened the door for some great conversations and understanding of each other and understanding where we're coming from. Even in therapy, we're able to have more discussions about my diagnosis and how that impacts like every interaction that we have, parenting, communication, managing the household, and then being able to like shift our perspective or expectations based on that. So here are my strengths, here are his strengths, here are some of our weaknesses. How can we like work together as a team?
Awesome.
Yeah.
So you want to talk about how we met? You want me to tell a story? You want to tell a story? There's not really a story.
There's always a story.
It's not, I really like, okay. Me and Damien were friends before we met, like before we fell in love. And we were really close friends. And I think that that friendship was very unique and very strong. And, once I kind of left my previous partner and started kind of doing things on my own, I was in the middle of opening a salon. Damien kind of really came to the rescue, I would say. He helped me open the salon, helped me put it together. And I think that support was very different than what I was in, right?
Yeah, I mean, I
And
did my best.
I think I just kind of fell in love with that. I fell in love with you always kind of being there for me and being like something I can lean on and talk to and not feel weird or not feel like I was too much or too needy. I think you kind of gave me an attention that I had never had before, and I definitely noticed that because I think it's very hard to find somebody that can, fulfill that when you have ADHD. Some people might identify that as needy. It's just a different love language and it's very amplified, right? Like we were talking about that in prepping for the episode. It's like one of the things with ADHD is that you kind of need attention. You need that almost feeling like you're the priority sometimes. It's not like you're actually the priority, you just have to feel like that. You have to feel like someone cares for you. Um like I guess like rejection feelings of like rejection sensitivity and feelings of rejection whenever like you don't like come and cuddle with me on the couch and watch TV. Like if you're off fishing and it's fine. He should do those things. Like that's one of those things that like with you it was very easy, I guess. Like and we kind of just fell in love. And then I don't know. Then what happened? Then you turned into a hairdresser.
Yeah, basically. I don't know. I never had so much fun with somebody. You know what I mean? Like every day was exciting because
I was crazy.
yeah, well, that was the thing. You're so spontaneous, and we'd be in the middle of doing one thing. You're like, "Hey, let's go do this." I'm like, "Okay, let's go." That sounds fun. Like,
Yeah, I would drag you to the beach at like 2 o'clock in the morning to go looking for sea turtles.
Keep it spicy all the time, right?
Um, so Damien, what do you think? Like you're dating somebody with ADHD, but you don't know it, right? When do you think you started to realize that there was something just a little bit different?
um, I don't know. Let's put me on the spot. When did I notice there was something different?
Yeah,
Um, I don't know. I mean, when we first met, like I was like, "What? You're like very spontaneous. You got a lot more energy. So how do you have to keep up with you?"
that's right, folks.
Gotta keep up with the spice.
I was like, I don't know. I was just attracted to the energy.
That is one of the benefits when you have ADHD.
We got big energy. Is that a song?
Yeah, big energy. I think the challenges didn't really come fully on until we were really committed. We had been dating a couple of years. So we had really been, our relationship really got strong then. And it wasn't like you moving in at all. I think it was just the business got really fucking hard. And that's when a lot of it like came out. Like I couldn't be as spontaneous sometimes because I was so worried about clients and, keeping my books balanced and multitasking and picking up inventory. And this was before I started having like systems in my business. Like I was chaos. I was complete chaos. And I think that was our first challenge was he was seeing like, how are you not keeping, track of how much cash is coming in? Or how is like, this all over the place? Or I don't know. What else?
I don't know. That's inventory. I took over inventory for a little while in the beginning because, like,
Yeah.
it was just we would run out of stuff. I'd have to run 2, 3 times a week sometimes because we'd be just going through supplies.
Well, I didn't really know how to like have an inventory sheet or anything. We were just like
No,
testing things.
we just like built a program that worked for us.
Yeah, you had to really predict, right? Like the
Yeah.
needs early on.
But he could see that I struggled with that. I struggled with, numbers. Like I'm not a math person at all. I struggle with creating good routines, so creating systems. And what's the biggest thing I struggle with? Okay, I know you're not going to get this right now because you're on the spot, but boundaries, right?
Yeah, that is a hard one with you.
Can you tell everyone a little bit about that?
I don't know. Can I?
Well, you just don't say any names or anything. Don't get me in trouble.
I mean, there's just certain times where in business, you create a relationship with somebody, and somewhere along the lines, the like relationship gets misconstrued. It's now you're crossing boundaries, but they don't know they're crossing boundaries. You know what I mean? But you like this person, so you don't want to like.
Oh, we should probably tell everyone. Me and Damien actually kept our relationship a bit private or aka a secret from a lot of our clients because I didn't tell anyone when I got divorced or separated. Like I didn't say anything because I didn't want to talk about it because I thought, well, for one, I was scared that they would judge me. And two, I just thought like if I talk about something like boring or sad or heavy, a lot of clients can't deal with that. And so they probably might not return because they'll judge me or they'll be like, wow, that was like such a lame experience. I got my hair done and my hairdresser dumped all over me.
Yeah.
People want to vent to you. So,
Yeah.
if
Therapist, right?
you
Yeah.
with them, that's like something heavier than what they come to
Right.
you with. It's like, now they're paying for the service. You know what I mean?
So we
Yeah.
did keep our relationship under wraps to keep it professional, which was fucking hard
It was very, very challenging at times.
because those boundaries got even harder for me to maintain because I had no idea. And then, once we did tell people, I think a lot of people were like, we knew.
I mean, you're foolish if you did.
But that did spark some challenges that we got through. I mean, it was hard for me to communicate about, you were so new into the industry. It was hard for me to really kind of like show someone how letting people in too fast can be a bigger problem than a solution, right? Like that isn't always the best idea. So I think that was one of our first struggles. And also because for you, you're just so you, like you're so authentic, and I'm so worried about being judged all the time.
Well, the thing is, when I first came to work for you, I had assisted you once or twice in the past. It was like being a surgical assistant. I was like, oh, okay, I could see how you're operating. You have foils, you have a comb, you have clips. If you drop a clip, you're going to need another one, so I'm going to have one ready.
And everything
wow.
was thrown on my tray.
It was, yeah, so you keep everything organized, clean, and I got really good at that. So I was able to like come in and help assist the business because there was no one there that can just keep up with the tasks in a timely fashion like I was doing it.
And I had no way of training anyone to do that because
It's like in culinary it's called mise en place. It's like everything is in its place. So like when something happens, like you just know where something is, it's prepped, it's ready to go. So there's always that sort of like knowledge of like or awareness of like everything is in
Yeah,
its place, it's ready to go. You have a system, it's orderly.
And that's how I like things to operate in my life. You know what I mean? I'm like, it's just.
hey, Damien, which one of us has the clean apron and which one has the dirty apron?
I have a dirty apron.
No, you have stains on your apron?
No,
Who has the stain one?
you do a lot of the time, but I just wear the same apron all the time. You have like 3 or 4 different aprons.
Not the point. Um, And then I think too, like with parenting, I think you started to see like how we differ. I think we can just talk about the diaper bag.
Oh yeah.
Tell us about the diaper bag.
My diaper bag's like, hurricane proof, you know, and it's organized and I know exactly where everything is and everything has a place and it's ready to go. It's refilled after I get home from when we go out. Susie's just like, where is it all?
Where's the damn diapers in the diaper bag?
How
We've
often
got-
do I forget things?
I mean, on
I just
occasion,
like go to Publix and buy like diapers on the spot.
can't say you've forgotten a lot, but like a handful of times.
Typical, right?
No, but it happens, right?
Remember when the first time you like looked in my wallet? I would just have like cash and receipts and a bunch of junk, like cards
God.
shoved in like a
Oh,
big
damn
thing.
it, that you just triggered
Oh my
him.
God.
Every time, like it's not in numerical order. It's not facing the same. Like,
How often are there crumpled up 20s and
oh
10s
yeah,
and
like
hundreds at the bottom of my bag?
it's I call it the lottery, like the luggage, the laundry lottery, because like sometimes there's like, hey, 20.
Yeah, you're gonna find
It
the
could have
treasure
been
hunt,
mine.
right?
Could have been you. You're just
Nice.
you get paid to do the lottery in our house or the laundry.
But I think that I think our biggest struggle though by far, besides boundaries, maybe would be like um how impulsive I can be. As much as you were attracted to it, it does drive you nuts. I know it does.
There was a time like 2 years ago where literally within a
Uh-oh.
3 hour period, she decided she was gonna plan a family trip to New York. And I'm like,
Oh my
whoa,
God, not this
hold
story.
on. She's like ready to buy tickets on the phone with her mom. She's like, I gotta buy them right now. They're gonna go
Invite my
live.
whole family to New York because they'd never been. I needed them to experience it and try a hot dog.
Then I went to New York with Susie before, and she doesn't do cold well.
Sensory, right?
No, yeah, that's
I was like, you're gonna bring your whole family with your grandma to New York. Do you know how cold it is in New York? Do you know how windy it is? You know how hard it is to get through the streets if you have a hard time walking.
okay. But see, here's the thing. The fight wasn't really about, or our disagreement, I should say, it wasn't really about the trip to New York. It's just how quick I don't think things through and how I'm so committed to it. And then how often do I get like major regret, or I don't even like ask you, is this cool if we just take a random trip to New York? So I was just not really good at communicating plans. And I was just really impulsive at one point. And I think a lot of it had to do with like the stress of the salon. I just wanted to, check out and disengage and just be as far away from Florida as possible because of the stress and all the overwhelming feelings I think I was having. And I think that it took a lot of work for us to get to a point where we could start communicating better. I think that was our wake-up call, right?
Yeah. Well, we have like two different styles of showing when we're annoyed. Like I get very like you can tell in my voice when I'm annoyed. With you, I can't as much, so that's the hard part.
You get good at people pleasing, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Or if I'm not people pleasing in the relationship, then sometimes I try to take control or take the lead because I really want to do the thing that I want to do so bad. Like if I want to go to Disneyland tomorrow, it's fucking happening. I will figure it out. I will make it work. I will make phone calls. I will move people around. I will, whose palms do I got to grease for tickets? Like it's happening. And I think Damien, you were not used to that.
No.
That's just not how you operate.
Mm-mm.
But we started doing therapy before we had our daughter.
Yeah.
And learning more about communication. Again, never really talking about my ADHD because at this time I have not been aware of what that really meant. I had done no research. So even though I knew I had it, that's not what Damien knew about me. He just knew that I had impulsivity and communication blocks that I needed to work on.
So how did you eventually have that conversation and put it in that context of, hey, you remember how I told you I had ADHD? This is what that means. And I think this is how it's impacting us.
Because very recently, when I started talking about your content and like, then I started kind of having like a quick little like pop up from my phone, like, hey, did you know that if you have ADHD, this is how you are, or right?
Mhm.
And then I told you that I started to understand from your content, from other people's content. I started to understand, like, damn, like I have ADHD and I didn't know it was like this hard,
Mm.
right?
Mhm.
Like at one point, I was thinking that a lot of content creators, even before you started making content, I started thinking like these people are running with this whole thing. Like I have ADHD too. Like it's not that bad.
Mm.
Because again, not knowing. And as some of these like the reels would become more intricate, or there were so many like little checklists that I had, that's when I think I started going like, I think I'm gonna read about this. And then I did, and then I was like, fuck, I was so wrong about the diagnosis. And then I started talking to you about that. I was like, it's actually a lot more than having some kind of learning disability or challenge there, right?
No, yeah. It's going to show up in every aspect of your life, like we talked about in communication and managing your emotions and the way that you get things done or don't get things done.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so obviously it's going to come up in your relationship. And if you don't understand why, then you can see how that can cause a separation or disconnect.
Yeah. And, I think for Damien too, like, it's hard for him sometimes to realize why I feel so awkward at parties, or even like if we're, at a restaurant, it's hard for me to ask the waiter for extra sauce or dressing. Like for you, it's so natural. I always make you do the talking. I'm like, I can't, I'm gonna freeze. Ask for like more sauce on the side. And how easy is it for you?
It's easy. And I was like, hey, can I get this real quick? Like,
Don't even think twice, right? You don't have to script it. You don't have to plan it out. You don't think about all the ways it could go wrong. You don't want to like inconvenience anyone. Like you were talking about even the other day, like when you sneeze or you bump into someone or
Oh
someone bumps
yeah.
into you, it's like, oh, I'm sorry, I'm existing.
Yeah.
Sorry. Like
Yeah.
it's hard.
That's such a major one for me.
but then sometimes, like, it was my birthday once and I ordered food and it was really not that good. And I wasn't gonna say anything. I was like, that's not a big deal, you know. And I'm just, she's like, no, he doesn't like this shit.
Okay, full disclosure, it was his birthday, and I was like, I'm not gonna let anything ruin it because, and we talk about this all the time, when you love so intensely, so deeply, and so furiously that you're not gonna let anyone mess with the people you love. That's
Exactly.
the time where my big girl part comes out. But when I need more ketchup,
But you can ask for someone else.
Don't say anything, don't say anything. And then, but and also like it's not just that. It's like anytime I have to go to an event or a class or a gathering, taking Damien is my safety rock because he can do all the schmoozing and I can be behind, and he's good at it. I'm not good at this. Like this is what you're good at.
I don't know.
I think that's interesting. I mean, I think in some ways you're very similar to that, like as far as just being able to go and mingle and do the small talk and interact with people. And I remember even sometimes like we would be expecting people over that we didn't know that well. I'd be like hiding. I'm like, are they here yet? Are they here yet? Just like so anxious. I'm like, okay, you answer the door, you say this, or even just like social hours and cocktail hours. I always feel so awkward, but I feel like
Yeah.
you really thrive in those settings. But sometimes with the more like deep emotional conversations, like he has had to learn how to get more comfortable with that.
Yeah, it's a hard thing,
Yeah.
It's part of masking. We've talked about that. And I think all people do it now. I think there's different ways. Like somebody with ADHD will mask a little different than maybe somebody a little bit more neurotypical or somebody like on the spectrum. Um, but yeah, like I really can't. So I'm very sociable. Like I love being out there. I'm very extroverted sometimes, especially like when I'm out with my buddies. But when I'm thrown into a room where I don't know one single person, I'm so introverted and weird and awkward.
Mhm.
And I do live by, a situation is only as awkward as you make it, but still, there's something in me that just like freezes or wants to just hide. There's no fight. Damien, you're like kind of like fight response all the time, but in a charming way. Like you're gonna fight like like I'm gonna fight to get over here and meet some new people. And I'm like, no, I'm running away. I'm not meeting nobody.
Your flight. Bye.
Bye. But really, I think that the biggest challenge we overcame, we had a loss 2 years ago. And if it wasn't for that loss, not that there's any like silver lining for me personally, but I think it was because of that that I was able to get a therapist who really saw the ADHD bits and was like, you should be on medication. That was the first time, I really thought about it. And you were pulled into that conversation, and I struggled with it for weeks before I decided to do it, right? And I think that was like a huge, like, what do I want to say? It was like a huge moment of clarity, because once that medication started taking place, I was like a different person, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
I think we like were mentioning how like calm and just more present I was able to be. I was starting to live in the now for the first time. I mean, for years I lived in the future and in the past. I'm worried about, what's going to happen next. What if this? What if that? I was even afraid of the elections all the time. Like, oh my God, this salon's going to get like hurt by this. And then to now, I just don't even care. Like, okay, like if it happens, it happens, but I cannot focus on that. I can only focus on this moment right here, right?
Hmm.
And that was our overcoming of our challenge,
Yeah.
right?
Hmm.
What was that moment like for you?
Um, I mean, it was a challenging time because it was when it first happened, it was very emotional for both of us. But it's I don't know. I felt for you, and I just wanted you to feel better at the time. And when you met your doctor, I mean, I think she really did understand really well and help you out a lot with it as far as putting you on the correct path.
Hmm. Yeah. And I think that was the correct path for me as far as like understanding my ADHD. And that was really when I think we opened the door to reading more about it and learning about it and discovering myself again.
Mm-hmm.
And it's been fucking huge. It's been fucking huge. And that's why I was so motivated to do the podcast, because I was like, I never in a million years thought that this was part of having ADHD. I had never thought our arguments, our icks, our quirks was all part of it.
Yeah, it's huge. I mean, it can be like a full circle moment because you start to recognize so much about yourself, but also how you show up in your relationship. And I know even Chris and I, like once we fully understood my diagnosis and the context and relationship, we just would like recount like all these different experiences. I know one of the first like ADHD meltdowns that he witnessed, we had stopped for me to go to the ATM to get some money out. And one of my triggers is things not working correctly or having issues with technology. So trying to get money out of the ATM, he's sitting in the car watching me. And like for whatever reason it wasn't working. And I start to like stomp my feet. I'm like screaming and I'm like having literally a meltdown. And I think that was the first time you're like, okay, so like all these like little moments that we've had in the last 21 years and now being able to like understand, okay, the fact that I'm impatient or maybe I get overwhelmed easily or I have these big emotions or certain things are challenging for me, but also I have these strengths. This is all because of the diagnosis. You just have a whole different perspective.
Mm-hmm. A whole different perspective. And then things that you can start to really, lean into and maybe make some changes, maybe have a bigger awareness, maybe have a little bit more reflection, right?
Yeah. I think the biggest thing too is just grace and compassion. Like being able to have that with ourselves, but also know that our partners have that for us, that we
Mhm.
can make mistakes, that we can mess up, we can forget things, we can have like a meltdown and they're still going to be there. And they have that like compassion and grace for us.
Yeah, I think one thing I really noticed with you is that, um, you know, with Damien, I just feel like it's always the need to take care of us, you know? And I think him knowing that the more I learned about ADHD, the more I was able to help myself and I guess take care of myself essentially, right?
Yeah, no, I think that's awesome. I think it's made a big difference in both of our relationships and even our friendship, right? Like when
Mhm.
you're able to openly talk about those things and understand each other and where you're coming from, It makes such a difference. So you don't take those things personally.
I know, right? I think that's what keeps the spark going, though, right? I mean, what do you think keeps the spark going in our relationship?
I'll say on camera.
Very on.
And let's be candid,
Yeah.
I think for us, it's always been just like this. We have a sense of humor together. Like we have this connection where like we already know each other's thinking, and like it's hard to explain because sometimes you just like with somebody, and you're like, we can not be saying anything and be as comfortable as can be, and then 5 minutes later we can be chatting about everything, and then just laughing about the same things. It's just us and the girls. It's like we're dancing, we're having fun, we're playing, we're being silly, be you, and like we just like it's like. I come home and it's already natural. It's like, like we just like, we can be away for a little bit, come back together. And it's like we just, it's just like so easy in life, like when you have somebody that you can just connect with and in that way. So
I think
I
it's
mean,
that safety and security, just like feeling safe and secure with someone.
Um, I guess like, how do you guys stay connected? I guess that would be family time.
Yeah, I think family time, but also being really intentional about date nights and time away to actually be just a couple and be able to focus on each other and express those things.
I have a question actually. You just brought up date night. I have a friend who recently had a baby and she expressed having like date nights and even girls' nights out, like once every, maybe once a week or once every 2 weeks. And another friend of hers, like, kind of made a comment like, you ever hear like people saying like date night is like so not necessary, you should always just be with your kids? Like,
Yeah, I mean, I think sometimes, people will shame you for it. Maybe the older generations that don't understand it, like, well, we never had date night when we were, raising kids, or certain people that maybe don't have kids that think you're being selfish. So, yeah, people might still have that mindset, but at the end of the day, it's your marriage, it's your family, and you have to make it a priority, because if you don't have that time together to really connect and just focus on each other, because when the kids are around, like, they're going to bid for your attention. There's always something going on and you're not able to be really present with each other. And so many couples just become disconnected. All they talk about is the house and the kids and what's for dinner, and you don't really have that spark or that spontaneity or that adventure anymore together.
yeah, like tonight, we don't get to do it very often where we get to go out and have adult time. But every time we do, I feel like it recharges our batteries.
Definitely.
It's just hard where we live. We don't get to have the sitter that we want, but we can make that work, right?
I mean, we can. It's just there's more things involved. Where it's like when we come here, we're staying.
Well, because it's a baby.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's harder, but I think as she gets older and we get more experience, we're gonna figure it out.
Yeah.
Because I like that. I do like how you guys do prioritize like date night. Like it definitely shows that you guys have fun. You're making time for each other, where it's just the two of you. Like that's how I felt tonight. Like it could just be us. We don't have to worry about the baby being tired or hungry or who's gonna change her.
Yeah, it makes such a difference just to take that pressure off the relationship, right? Because you sometimes don't get that breathing room to just be like in the moment and enjoy it.
I know. In the back of my head, I'm always like, oh, I wonder if I hope she's okay. You know what I mean? Like,
Well, you're always thinking about them
it's so
too.
fresh.
First time dad.
Yeah, I mean, it took a while. I mean, I think initially my parents would maybe just come over for an hour or so. And I remember like the first few times you just feel so awkward. You just want to come right back home. You want them to send you updates minute by minute. It is hard. So you have to wait until you feel comfortable and you have someone that you trust. And so I mean, it wasn't right off the bat where we were like going out on a regular basis and, finding sitters that you trust and feel comfortable with too.
yeah, I mean, like you said, it's just recharging your batteries. And in a lot of ways, it's just you forget about the conversations you can have because you're like, sometimes you're at the end of the day, you put the girls to bed, and even then, you might have time together, but it's not in that same kind of mind frame of, okay, we can go out and have fun, we can just be adults, like kind of, let loose. And so, it's just so important to have like that different, like sort of mindset and the interaction, right? So, getting away from them makes you appreciate them in a lot of different ways, right? So when you're with them all the time, you don't see things where we can go out and like kind of reflect. Because oftentimes we find ourselves going out and we're talking about them anyway. So it's like it's kind of allows you to reflect on those things and appreciate them as you kind of process like, hey, they did something funny today, and like, oh, did you notice that, or did you see them do that? And so, it kind of gives you that new perspective or just a fresher perspective of like than being in it all the time.
Yeah, because sometimes, you just feel like you're surviving. Like we just got to get through this moment or survive the storm, especially with our ages right now. There's just always a lot of energy and chaos and stuff going on. So you're able to just then have that break, breathe a little bit, appreciate them and appreciate each other.
I think like something we used to do before Juliet, whenever we would go on trips, we would always have like rules about, so to connect, we would not talk about the salon or the people in it.
Oh yeah.
We wouldn't talk about our families or vent about them. I think there's one more. I guess we just wouldn't talk about like adult things like, oh, when we get home, we better like fix that one cabinet that's a little weird.
I just
Or
have to
let's not talk
live,
about the bills.
we just live in the now at the time we're on that vacation, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like we're not home. Let's not worry about the shit at home right now. Let's enjoy it. Because what's the point of doing it if you're not going to enjoy it?
Yeah, that's so important to just be able to be in the moment and enjoy the experience.
Well, I think that's a really positive note to end this on. What do you think?
Yeah, maybe we should put them on the spot for one more thing and have
Okay.
them say what has been the most fun thing about being with a neurospicy gal.
Every day is an adventure. You don't know what you're doing.
There you go. It's always an adventure. You're never going to be bored, right?
Yeah, I'd say the same. I mean, I think some of our funnest times have been kind of when we were like on vacation, or I've seen Amy kind of get a little,
Letting loose.
yeah. So, I mean, I think we're just in general, we're fun people. We like to have fun, like, you know, dance, have fun, like be crazy, like, and I think just and especially my partner here and my wife, she likes to let loose and have fun, and I like that about her. And I will say that, in a lot of ways, you've taught me to be more like free going and outgoing in that way, just not worry about what people think. So I definitely appreciate that about you a lot. And I think that's a very fun element of you.
Aw.
So sweet. Well, this was fun. Thank you guys for being you and supporting us. Um, although I think that love can be challenging when you're neurospicy. You don't have to blame yourself or think you're failing. You just have to really do the work and understand, learn more about ADHD. I think that was huge for me. And also if you have a partner that's willing to do the work, right?
Makes a big difference.
They got to hold space for you and remind you that you're not too much. Because then when you do the work and you do find the tools to communicate and to show, support, then I think the relationship can get to this really magical fucking place, right?
Oh, yeah. It can be a superpower too when you're able to utilize your love in the right way, right? Because we do love so intensely, and when we find someone that appreciates that and can reciprocate it, it means everything.
Yeah. I think that, there's people out there that do find themselves in this situation where they don't feel like they're enough or that they're not worthy of being loved. And really, I think it's just not understanding like how your brain works. And I think once you do, you really get to decide and create the life that makes you happy, and also forgive yourself, because at the end of the day, we're human beings. And I think, we're still finding out more about ADHD, and people are just now learning about it, right?
Oh, yeah. There's still so much research to be done. So that's kind of one of the points of the podcast, is to raise that awareness and advocate.
Yeah, we want to see people get fully accepted for being neurospicy. We want people to feel like they don't always have to say they're sorry or be people pleasing, and find the right, spaces for them where they can feel seen and validated, and also have the, space to make mistakes. So thank you guys again for joining us. I hope we didn't put you on the spot too hard. You got really shy today, didn't you? Oops. No, but it was great. It was sweet. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, guys, remember to take care of yourselves. and each other and keep it spicy.
Spicy.